quick animation tips and techniques. And if you didn't catch it a couple weeks ago now, we had a webinar with Mark, who is really good at animation. He's basically an animation pro, which I am not. You'll see me kind of struggling through things from time to time. But yeah, we're going to be talking all about different animation techniques from body to face, and some more advanced stuff a little bit later on. And if you have any questions, I'll put this up there right now. We have a Q&A session at the very end. So the last little bit, but with about 10 minutes or 15 minutes left in the webinar, we're going to answer some questions. And if you have any questions, put those in the Q&A panel of Zoom at any time. Anytime throughout the webinar, you can do that, and I'll answer them at the very end. And we are recording this as well and broadcasting it on YouTube. If you are watching from YouTube, we're not going to be answering questions from the YouTube feed. You have to log in with the Zoom link, and we'll answer questions from Zoom only. Okay, and let's do, as always, we're going to be sending out a survey in the content store for you guys. Or sorry, rather, not a content store survey. A survey that'll give you a 10% discount for the content store if you fill out that survey for us. And so make sure you check your emails for that after the webinar, and you get a 10% discount for the content store. And last thing, speaking of the content store here, if you go to the content store right now, we have a really good weekly special on. There's a weekly special in the content store over here. If you click on it, every week is different. Right now we have Animation at Work, Cartoon Motion Volume 3. Now the cool thing about this pack is it can be used with both iClone and with Cartoon Animator 4. So it can be used with both 3D and 2D characters. In case you're not aware, we have that motion link that allows us to import 3D iClone motions onto 2D Cartoon Animator 4 characters, certain types of characters, the G3 characters more specifically. And I can refer you to a bunch of tutorials for that later if you want. We made a bunch of tutorials a few weeks ago about that. So make sure you check this out. I'll put the link in the description, or not in the description, in the chat window. This isn't YouTube anymore. Whoops, wrong window. All right, where are we here? Chat window. All right, there you go. So make sure you check that out and come back every week. There's really often like really good deals. You can see it's down from like 74 to $7. So yeah, definitely worth your while to check back every week on this content store weekly special stuff. Okay, so let's close down the content store. A little brief overview of what we're going to be covering in the webinar today. You can see here transition curves and character and props, picking up and throwing an object. So just a lot of like very simple things that should seem simple, but they're actually not as simple as they may seem, because there's a lot of little tips and tricks that go into creating accurate versions of this. Stretching bones, and we will probably get into facial animation a little bit later if we have time, but there's a lot of other animation stuff to take care of. Okay, so I think that's about it for the introduction. Let's go ahead and close all this stuff down now, and I'm going to bid you guys adieu, since we'll focus on the Cartoon Animator 4 screen right now. You may see my face a little bit later if we do facial motion capture, so I'll just stop the video for now. And I'll share my screen with you guys here. Oops, I should have shared the screen earlier. I wasn't even sharing the screen. Yeah, so I put the link in the chat window anyways. And I think you saw the overview. If we go to Reillusion webinars here, this is basically what I showed earlier. I realized I wasn't even sharing the screen there. You were just looking at my face. This is the one we're talking about today. Okay, so this is the overview right now. Okay, and content store, I put the link in the chat window. You can also find it if you go to content store, main content store page, and weekly special down here. All right, and that'll take you to this Animation at Work. Really cool stuff, and you can check out that more on your own time. All right, but for now, like I mentioned, we'll go to Cartoon Animator 4 now, the application, and let's get started with what we're going to be covering today. So I'm going to play back this little quick scene. We're going to have a character with a basketball in his hand, and he's going to be essentially slam dunking this basketball into a net. So let's go ahead and play it back. All right, so we're going to be recreating that. You may think it's super easy, but actually it takes a little bit of time to do the steps all properly. All right, so let's go ahead and stop go back to frame 1. Let's go out of record mode here to get out of camera record. And then let's zoom out here. And you can see we have this character. I'm just going to delete this character for now since we're going to replace him. We're going to replace his shadow down there as well. Okay, I'll talk about how to do the shadow a little bit later on. Okay, so we have this really cool background scene. If you go to scenes here, this is a scene that's purchased from the content store by a developer named Anton Backmutt, and it's called American Suburb. You can search for this in the content store under scenes and find it. I'm just going to go ahead and if you want to find if you want a link to find that later, I can send it in the Q&A session, but for now I'm just going to focus on the animation stuff. And then we have this basketball net over here. This basketball net is done by Gary Pye. You're probably familiar with him if you've been to the content store. You can go to the prop tab, and Gary Pye has his own special dedicated folder here for content pack. And there's this sports content pack for Gary Pye. And you can just search Gary Pye sports. You'll probably find it in the content store, and you'll find a hoop and the mesh on top of the hoop. So you can have a basketball actually go through the mesh instead of in front of it. So it has to be on a separate layer, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Okay, and this mesh for the hoop is actually a little bit skewed, and we'll talk about that later because it's actually a front-facing hoop, but we've kind of made it seem like it's maybe at a 15-degree angle or something like that, the same angle as the sidewalk here. Okay, let's get to the animation first, and then we'll take care of all the little nitty-gritty details a little bit later on. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in an actor. So I'm going to go to my actor tab here. We're going to bring in that same character. Now this character is from the Campus Hero Pack. You can find this in the content store as well. Just be aware of that. And if you want, I can send out this whole project to you guys at the end of the webinar. But just be aware, if you haven't purchased this content, it'll show up with a watermark. Okay, let's bring in our dude anyways. First guy, his name is Jared. Jared, 45-degree facing. So we'll just go ahead and bring him in. And what we're going to do is we're going to apply a quick animation to Jared. You can see he's a little bit big for our scene. If we scroll our mouse wheel up, we can bring him forward in our scene like this. And then we can resize him to something a bit more reasonable. I think we can use the basketball hoop for scale there. Basketball hoop is about 10 feet. I think that should be good. All right, so we'll bring him back over here. He's going to do his run up. So if you don't have the time and you have a little bit of extra money, you can actually just purchase content packs that contain animations, or you can even go to our Actor Core website and you can purchase Actor Core motions from there as well. In case you're not familiar, I'll just type in Relution Actor Core. This is our site that contains a huge motion library of content, and you can purchase stuff from here. I'll throw this in the chat window. I don't want to spend too much time showing you guys all these pages since you've perhaps seen it already. Okay, but you can go there and find all sorts of different motions. You can purchase them individually, which is the cool thing about Actor Core, and use them in your projects there, both for 2D and 3D. Okay, so what we're going to do here is I'm going to go to Animation tab. This is a separate pack. I'm going to go to the Motion folder here. And there's a separate pack called G3 Human Motions Mission Moves. And under the Stunt folder, you'll find a slam dunk. Okay, now very important to note here that this slam dunk, see the character here in the thumbnail, he has lines behind him. Now what this means is that this is a root motion. And I'll talk about root motions in just a moment when we apply this. So we can just have our character selected and double click slam dunk. And our character will proceed to run off the screen. And we can follow him with our camera over here. Okay, so this is essentially what he did. He runs over here, jumps. Oh, I need to get rid of this basketball. That's for later. And he dunks. Okay, you can see he's probably about maybe one grid length too far past the hoop. So if we want, I mean, the easiest way to fix this is just to adjust his position, maybe half a grid length back at the very beginning of the animation. So at frame 1, just move him back here. And then if we play now, that'll be about the correct position. And he's actually behind the hoop right here. So if you want him to be in front of the hoop, then just go ahead and bring him forward. Again, at frame 1, everything needs to be at frame 1 because that's the beginning of the motion. bring him a little bit forward on the z-axis by clicking and dragging this little icon at the bottom of the selection box here. Again, you can also scroll your mouse wheel up and down to bring him forward and backward. Okay, so because we did it at frame 1, he's going to be in front of the hoop the whole time. And okay, he's a little bit too far. We're not going to worry about tweaking that too much. Another way you can do that is if you want to have the character closer, say, for example, he starts at this telephone pole here, then what we need to do is we need to actually calculate. So from here to the telephone pole, I calculate about, you can see these grid lengths here behind the scenes. So 1 and 2. It's probably about 2 grid lengths. So what we're going to do is we're going to scrub through our timeline until he gets to about here, 2 grid lengths. And then I'm going to press F3 and go into my timeline. You can also use this button right here. And I'm going to use this object-related track. This always selects the character's tracks that you have selected on the screen. So if I press this, it's only going to show our character Jared's tracks. Just makes things simpler. Okay, and you can see the playhead is right here at about frame 26. If we go to our motion track, this is the slam dunk motion clip that we simply applied from here. And the character is moving. Now, the movement is all baked into this clip. So the movement across the screen is all baked into the clip. It's not dictated by our transform position. So I'll talk about transform position a little bit in just a sec here. But if we want to refine this, we can right click on this clip at this point here, just break it, and then we can delete the first part of the clip. Okay, and then take this second clip and click and drag it to the beginning, just like this. Now, the problem here is he'll jump from here to here. Okay, from frame 1 to frame 2, he'll bounce from here to here. Now, the easiest solution to that is just at frame 2, just bring him back to this little point right here. You'll see this little gray dot. That's his original position right there. And we'll just kind of put his root right there. So now when we play back, he'll go a little bit earlier like this, okay? And all we need to do is just change our first frame to something right here. And then this frame to something about right there. And then that should be fine. Okay, so we can shorten the animation like that. He'll jump and he should be, okay, maybe a little bit too far. But again, you can always just move back a little bit. And he needs to probably move back a little bit more even. Right about there, okay. Boing. Okay, we're gonna work with that, close enough. Okay, so he just grabs onto the hoop right there. Now, if you're working with root motions, that's how you can basically essentially adjust the position of your character on the screen. Because like I mentioned, the movement of the character from one point to the next is baked into this clip. So let's go ahead and delete this clip for now. And I'm going to show you a motion that is a non-root motion. I'm going to right click on my character, just remove object animation for now, just to keep things simple. I'll move him somewhere. I'll make sure we got frame 1. And move him somewhere here. Now, you'll notice there's other motions here, aside from the slam dunk, that don't have kind of lines behind them. Like this walk sneaky, for example. Where is it here? Walk sneaky forward. This one here has lines behind it. And where's the other one that doesn't? Okay, so there's a walk squat, for example. Now notice this one doesn't have lines behind the character, the dummy on the thumbnail. If I click on this, notice he'll walk and squat, but he'll do it in the same position. And that's called a transform motion. So there's a difference between the transform motion and the root motion. Now the transform motion, you actually have to manually move your character forward. So if I zoom in on the character, let's make sure I selected there. You'll see that he kind of goes like this. Whoops. Okay, he's not moving forward. So what we need to do is we need to actually move him forward at the end frame. So at frame 40 or 41, whatever it is, we need to move him forward. And you'll see that green line kind of appears behind him to indicate that his transform position is changing. So then we could do this. Okay, so that's how you kind of animate a transform motion from one point to the next. And if we open up our transform track, you'll see we have two keyframes here. One keyframe at the beginning of our motion and one at the other one, at the next. If we want to make him move not as far, a shorter distance, we can click and drag, and you'll see the line will become shorter, and now he's moving a shorter distance. Now, the problem with these motions, these transform motions, is oftentimes they can have foot sliding. And if you're an animator, you're probably very familiar with foot sliding. Notice this character's right foot. When he plants the right foot, it'll slide back, okay? And that doesn't look good. Unless he's doing a moonwalk of some sort, we don't want his foot to be sliding back. So, I mean, the one way to adjust this is to move his position forward at the very end. So there's less sliding. You'll see there's less sliding there. There's still a little bit of sliding from here to here, but there's less. And you kind of just have to tweak that. Okay. And if you're depends on your project, it can be noticeable or not. If you kind of avoiding looking at the feet with the camera, then you can kind of cheat a little bit. But that's the difference between the two motions. Okay, very simple. And if you want more clarification on that a little bit later, I'd be happy to tell you more about that. Okay, but let's go to frame 1 here. And what we're going to do next is we're going to actually create a custom motion. We're going to create a custom slam dunk motion. And we're going to be using a combination of clips and motion key edits to achieve this. So let's go ahead and zoom out really quick. And what we're going to do is we're going to use just a regular typical motion that comes embedded with Cartoon Animator 4. So this motion is completely free. You just have to create it from scratch. So let's go over here to motions, and under G3 human, we have Turner's Mail. Okay, you'll come every Cartoon Animator 4 will come with this, and we're going to go to side. And you can see there's a bunch of animations here. There's this pose sits, there's climb, climbing ladder, there's dribbling, there's fight. Of course, we can have him dribbling and stuff as well. QR. And then there's run forward. Okay, so we're going to be using this run forward loop. I forgot to mention as well, there's 3 run forwards. There's 1, S, and the S stands for start. There's 2 with L, and the L stands for loop. And there's 3 with an E, and the E, as you might guess, stands for end. Okay, so start, loop, and end. Now, if I want to loop my run, I can just click it. Double click it here, and you'll notice he'll just run a couple steps. Now, because this is a root motion, we face a kind of tricky scenario here where if we want him to run further, if we play back like this, and if we want him to run further, generally with transform motions, you can actually just loop the motion clip over and over again. But in this case, we can't really do that. If we select the clip right here, and we go to loop right here, you can see where my mouse is. You can also use the Alt-L hotkey. If I click and drag on the end of the clip and I loop it, what's going to happen is he's going to go back to the original position at the beginning of every loop. So every time you loop a root motion, it'll just take the transform position back to the original transform position. So it'll just be like this, boop, like he's running through time, going back and forth in time. Okay, so obviously that's not what we want. So let's Control Z and undo that. The easiest way to achieve this is if you we'll just delete everything for now. I'll move him up here a little bit. If I click on this run forward loop right here, he runs forward to this point. Then what I'm going to do, instead of using the loop function in the timeline, I'm just going to double click on the clip again and apply it a second time. Okay, and when you do that, it uses the current position as the reference, okay? So as the beginning. So he'll just kind of go from here and continue going. And he runs right past the basketball hoop. So again, what we can do is we can just, move him back a little bit if we want. And then, zoop. Okay, we get this. So it uses the reference position from the first clip to continue on to the second clip. Okay, now maybe we want him to kind of jump in the middle of one of the clips. So let's say we want his run to start from, or his jump to start from here. So what we can do is let's go ahead and let's actually have his, we don't actually need this second clip. We can make him have a longer jump. let's go ahead and delete this second clip. And as he lands right here, he's going to land on his left foot. So you can see his left foot is going forward, and he's going to land on his left foot. So the next step we're going to take is we're going to create our custom motion. And what I'm going to do to create this, I'm going to use that other motion that I brought in previously as a reference, because it's kind of easy to do that, just easier to kind of copy the motion. So what I'm going to do with this character currently on the screen is I'm going to, at frame 1, I'm just going to go ahead and hold the Control key and click and drag. Okay, and when you hold the Control key on anything in Cartoon Animator 4 and you click and drag, it'll create a duplicate of that. Okay, so now we have a duplicate of this character right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this just to differentiate him from the other character. I'm going to go over here to my render style. And this is also the way that you can create shadows, by the way. Go over here to render style and just take the brightness all the way down to 1 or 0, okay, or negative 100 rather. And so now it'll look like it's a shadow, but it's just kind of our reference pose for what we're going to create. And we'll close that down. We can resize this later for the shadow, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the same animation there. So in the mission moves pack here, the stunt, we'll find the slam dunk. SLM slam dunk. There we go. Okay, and of course he goes too far. So what we're going to do is just take his motion clip, and I think he all we need to really have is this part. So as this is kind of a similar position that this character is in right now. It's gonna look like this in the end. So I'll go ahead and break this clip and delete this part here. Okay, and then at this frame, again, we can just click and drag it to the very beginning. And all we want to do is at this frame where he's right here, we'll click and drag this clip to that position, that same position. Okay, just like this. And move him right here, because he's just going to be a reference for what we're going to do, okay? So we need to do this, and we need to animate this. Okay, so we need to animate all that stuff together. Okay, again, we're just going to use this this black guy in the background as a reference, okay? Let's go ahead and click our main character. And what we're going to do here is, he needs to be a little bit forward, actually. About there we go. Okay, good enough. The timing is not essential right now, but okay, so right here, we want him to kind of move down from his left step. We want him to kind of move down in preparation for his jump. So if you're observed anyone jumping before in basketball or whatever, generally they're going to crouch down a little bit before they jump just to get maximum height with their legs, okay? So what we need to do is kind of, from this point here, I'm going to go ahead and we can just double click in the, let's close down our transform track right now. We're not going to use it. I can just double click in my, here's something confusing that I need to clarify for you guys. There's actually 2 transform tracks. This main transform track is just for the position of your character on the screen. Now, it's very important to note that this transform data is not going to be baked into your clip, okay? The only transform data that's baked into your clip is the transform data in the second transform track, which is a subtrack of your motion track, okay? So let's remove the main transform track. This is the only transform data that's going to be baked into your clip, and we're gonna save our clip later. I'll show you that. Okay, so I'm just going to double click in the transform track. And what that does is that's going to bring up our 2D motion key editor. You can also find it over here on the left, 2D motion key editor, and use the K hotkey. So what that does is that essentially just adds an absolute key. And what you can do if it doesn't add an absolute key, just select full body over here and select set key. Okay, and that's going to be the start of our animation. So what we need to do from here to here, about frame, let's say we can click and drag this a little bit here. Don't worry about all the other stuff here. Let's just, we'll just focus on the transform track right now. We'll get to that in more detail later. So from here, I'll keep it right here, to maybe about frame 34. Well, let's keep it consistent with this guy, and then we'll change the timing a little bit later on. Okay, so from here to here, we want him to put in from this position into this crouching position. So what we need to do in that case is I'm going to do a couple things here. I'm going to lock my character's feet. We have constraints on right now. And with constraints on, you can actually lock your character's feet. I'm going to lock his right foot here. And if we lock the right foot and we move the hip bone right here, which is the main bone on the character, oh, that's the wrong foot there. It's his left foot that's ahead. So we'll lock the left foot here. And if we move our hip, notice what's going to happen here. That foot will remain stationary. Okay, but we can move the entire body around. And this is going to be very useful for what we need to do with this crouch. So we can move his body up like this. Okay, and then of course we need to reposition that foot to be a little bit more flat, just like this. Okay, so again, we're going to be kind of copying this motion right here. And then we need to bring our other leg up like this. And you'll notice this leg is like, wow, it's like way too long. Even if we kind of bend it like this, it's going to look way too long. All right. So what we need to do in this case is we actually need to resize the bone of the leg. Now, we can't resize the bone if we have constraints on. So let's take constraints off. And if I take this bone now, right here, this thigh bone, and I move it up like this, it'll actually allow us to resize that, kind of push that thigh further into the torso there. Okay, so it's something like this. And we can do the same thing with the right shank. So we can take this right calf here. We can kind of move that up like this. And then finally the foot. We take the ankle, we move the ankle up. It'll actually resize that calf muscle there, right there. Okay, so we want to get something like this. And then of course we can take that ankle and kind of rotate it, just like that. And if if you're fussy, you can take the toe, and no one's going to really notice the toe, but there you go. Okay, so now what we have is we have a single animation from here to here. Okay, so he's getting prepared for his jump. Now, there's a couple more things we need to do here. We're going to bring his chest forward. Okay, just like this. And again, I'm not going to use constraints right now. I'm going to rotate it forward like this. And notice that his arms are kind of like closer to his body, just like this. And we can, have his head down a little bit if we want, whatever, just to kind of exaggerate his jump. I'm going to take his hips and move his hips a little bit more forward too as well. Oh. Now, before I do that with the hips, of course, I need to add constraints and lock my two ankles there, and then move it forward like this. Okay, so now we have this from here down to here. And then the next motion we want to get to is this motion. The next pose rather is this pose right here. Okay, now I'm not worrying about the timing right now. I'm going to take care of the timing later. I just want to go from pose to pose. And this is kind of the most monotonous part of animation, is doing keyframe animation, if you're familiar with it. Okay, so I want it to stretch out like this now. Now, when I have a character stretched out, I tend to use what's called stretch bone here. So if you have constraints and you select stretch bone, basically this allows us to stretch our character's bones, even though he has the leg constraints or the foot constraints on. So if I do that and I stretch it like this, notice I can stretch his legs as much as I want, even though we have the constraints on. Okay, so we don't want to exaggerate it too much, just something like this. A nice kind of stretch like that. And also what we need to do here is we also need to rotate those feet so they look like they're jumping. So let's click on both of those heels there. And let's rotate them like this. Okay, and this one needs to be rotate on the toe a little bit more. Okay, and then we're just going to take this pose right here. This arm can be a little bit further back, the left arm, but the right arm has to be stretched out like this. And our neck has to be rotated quite far back because he's jumping and reaching out. Okay, and we can take that hand and with the hand stretched out like that, and you can see the arm will stretch just like the elbow before. But notice that if I move it like this, it'll kind of bend the wrong way. Like his arm will bend the wrong way. So what you want to do is just, I'm going to Control Z and undo that a couple times here. It seems I need to do. Okay, and what I need to do is select here, keep bend direction in constraints. And when we do that, it allows us to keep the bend direction generally for this arm here, even if we stretch it out. Okay. But again, we are stretching it out too much, so it's not going to have too much of an effect. I'm going to just do something like that. Okay, so notice my character is leaning a little bit more forward. That's fine. This pose right here, he's leaning a little bit more forward. Now the next pose here is about right here as he grabs the rim. So just right here. So again, we're just going to do the same thing with that. Now notice I'm not moving my character. I'm only moving the hip bone here. So this is the root. This is the root of the character. So it's going to bake all this into the character. So let's take our hip and let's just, move it up. So again, I showed you this is going to be a very kind of long jump, much longer than our shadow character. He's been practicing for the slam dunk competition a bit more. And we're going to take those legs, kind of move the map like this. And just going to bend them slightly. And same thing for the other ones. There we go. And he needs to have his hand forward, grabbing the rim. Okay, maybe I'll take his hips a little bit further down there. Okay, so now we have this. So he's jumping like this. Notice it's quite the jump from there to there, but again, it's just stretching like that. Now, notice there's all these tracks down here, like these torso T, neck T, right thigh T, etc., and they all have keyframes in them. Basically, the T stands for transform. Okay, so this is just a transform position. The S stands for sprite. You don't need that right now, so you can deselect that. We're only dealing with T, which is transform. We're not dealing with layer. We're not dealing with anything else, just T, which is transform. Now, the main transform track here, if I click and drag this keyframe on the main transform track, notice that all the other keyframes will follow it. So this is the main keyframe for all these other transform tracks. So the torso, the hip, if I move it forward like this, everything's going to move forward. Okay, so we'll go to this point here. So he jumps like that, and then we need to have him kind of, as he arrives, he needs to pull himself up a little bit. So from here to here, we'll just have him pull himself up, and we'll lock his right hand here, and we'll just take the body and oops. Make sure we lock that right hand there and take the hip and kind of move it up. So as he hits the rim like that, he kind of moves forward a little bit, and maybe his body rotates like that. And his legs move a little bit forward. Again, just doing some very basic stuff here, just to get the basics down. So hits the rim a little bit forward, and then from forward, he kind of goes down. And we need to stretch him down like this now. So again, with the right hand locked, because his hand is still on the rim, we're going to bring him down like this. Oh, took his whole thigh away there. Take the hip down. And this time his head can be rotated forward. Again, this is the most monotonous part of the whole process, but again, it is manual animation. So it's just kind of going from point to point and then getting certain poses set like this. And yeah, let's maybe even stretch him a little bit more. Okay, so he kind of goes up and then stretches down. And then we'll just have him drop. Okay, and when he drops, we'll have him in this position here. Okay, so we're just going to copy this position. Oop, we don't want his arm to stretch that far. Now we can unlock the arm, move him down, have his legs in a good position, a landing position, so to speak. Take those feet and rotate them. So this is our initial landing position, and then we're going to land a bit further. We're going to spring him down and up again a little bit, so like this. And then his arm will be down into a regular position. There you go. And then from here to here, he needs to go down. So he crouches like this. And again, we're going to lock those feet to have him crouch. Take the hip and bring the hip down like that. You can see this thigh is still quite elongated, so we can take off our constraints. Take that thigh and just kind of stretch it up a bit. There we go. And the foot can be rotated there. There we go. Okay, so although we want that position to be the same, so let's take that foot and rotate the ankle a bit more there. Okay, and that's going to be it. And then he'll kind of return to normal right here. Now, if we want him to return to normal, I can pose him again if I want, or I can just take that same transform frame, transform keyframe right here, and just click on copy it and paste it. Okay, so that's basically all the animation that we need to do. That's kind of the monotonous process, like I mentioned before. But we have this now. If we play back, we have this. So jump. Okay, so you see the, let's get rid of the black guy because he's kind of distracting now. So we have all of our motions taken care of. Let's just make him invisible. And I'll play back really quick again. Okay, so everything is good, but the timing is way off. So this is kind of the way I prefer to work. I just kind of prefer to do the motions first and then fix up the timing a little bit later. So what I'm going to do with this character here is we need to set a little bit of timing adjustments, obviously. So this part here, as he goes down for the crouch, that needs to be a lot faster. So what I can do to make it faster is I'm going to take this transform keyframe and I'm going to move this up. Okay, so I'm up maybe about 4 frames ahead. Don't worry about this flip hip keyframe right now. We can talk about that later. But okay, so that crouch is pretty good. And then from here to here, that needs to be a lot faster as well. So let's just click and drag that keyframe. And then the jump, whoa, you can make that jump as fast or as slow as you want. Okay, in this case, that's okay. Whoops, what did we do there? Oh, I do have a keyframe there. It accidentally added a keyframe. I'm not sure why. There we go. Okay, now notice it's kind of strange. He just goes in a linear fashion right directly towards the net. Now what I'm going to do here is a really quick little tweak. We're going to move this keyframe a little bit further ahead, and this frame, I'm going to kind of bring him a little bit above the net. Okay, just going to move his. Whoops, I need to Control Z that. We don't want to move him the transform position, so make sure you're not moving the transform position at all. We need to go back into our motion key editor and take his hip and just move it slightly up like this. Okay, so now we have this. Okay, from here to here, I'll just jump like that and then slowly kind of go down like that. And then the rest of the timing needs to be adjusted as well. And of course, everything needs to be a lot faster. This as well. And that fall needs to be a lot faster. So you kind of see what I'm doing here. As he falls here, and then here and here. Okay, so those are the basic timing. I think that's kind of just roughing it out. So if we play back now, the timing is going to be okay. We're going to refine it a little bit now, okay? So we have that motion, and it looks okay, but there's a lot more you can do with it. You can actually use transition curves to make the movements a lot more dynamic. So this part is really the most important part to kind of refining the animations to make them look more energetic and more realistic. So we're going to do a couple of transition keys here. We no longer need the 2D motion key editor, so we can close this down. And what we can do is, from this point as he goes down to his crouch, so this one is fine. This position, this keyframe to this keyframe right here is fine. You can right click on it and select transition curve. And I may want to try something like a smooth. Okay, it doesn't really matter because it's going to be too fast anyways. But the transform position from here to the launch right here, we actually need to move his hips a little bit forward there. But from here to here, we can also use a smooth. Okay, so what a smooth is it'll kind of just it's kind of like an ease in and ease out if you've used like video editing software and stuff like that. A smooth is sort of like an ease in and ease out. It's just a very, very basic one. You can adjust the strength here, which I won't bother with right now. But if we play back, okay, the one part that really needs to be modified is the jump from here to here. Okay, so from here to here, what we need to do here is as he jumps, he's going to be kind of accelerating really quickly as he jumps first and kind of sort of floating through the air. So we're going to select a decelerate transition from here to here. And you'll notice now that he kind of bounces up really quick. So from here to here, he kind of bounces really fast. So he's already at the position right here. Okay, and these last few frames is very, very little movement, but these first few frames is a lot of movement. Okay, and that's what we want. Okay, so we want to have it like a boing, like that, sort of like a bounce. And then from here to here, since we have an accelerate, now we can have like an accelerate, or even just a smooth from here to here, it doesn't really matter. Boing. So he grabs onto the rim right here. And from here to here, we can have sort of a damping effect. So what damping does is it kind of goes beyond the position that it's supposed to go to, and then it goes back to that position. You can see the reference right here. And then from here, he goes back down. And I think what we want to do here, I'm not sure why there's a keyframe right there, but we'll take this keyframe out. I think it's adding kind of phantom keyframes here. We definitely want to add a keyframe from here to here where he falls. Okay, and this one is going to be the damping one. Okay. And so you can see so now it seems like he does sort of like a double duck. So maybe this one damping is not the best idea. We can try maybe do a smooth one. And then here is the accelerate. And then finally, it's basically just kind of assigning different transition curves to different keyframes to get the kind of results you want. Now, maybe the end one, you could have like an end and a bounce. Okay, if we move that a little bit further down, we get a result like this. Okay, so we kind of like a little, you can see there's a double bounce there at the end between this keyframe and this keyframe. You'll see that double bounce. Okay. And I think that's going to be fine. I'm just going to leave it right there. Since we have a lot of other stuff to cover, I want to kind of just get out of that for now. So what I'm going to do next is we're going to just basically take a break from the animation really quickly. We're going to add a basketball into our character's hand. Now, if you want to save this animation to your character, you can do so by going to collect clip right here. And then for the entire motion, it kind of ends at about this frame 92. Just click and drag into collect clip track until it's all gray there, and then right click anywhere in the track and select export. You can export it to your motion library, or you can actually select add to action menu. And what this will do is this will add the motion to your action menu. We can call it dunk. Press OK. And if we just delete all the animation on our character, like remove animation, remove all of our hard work here with the keyframes, then we can right click on the character, go to action menu, and we can see dunk right here. Okay. So it's going to be the same thing, right? So we just saved it to our character. Okay, so that's pretty cool. You can do that. So what I'm going to do now is just basically take our character into Photoshop really quickly. We're going to replace we're going to basically put a basketball in his hand. And then at the end, I'm going to show you some squash and stretch with the basketball as the basketball lands. And that's some quick and easy prop animation. I'm just using deform. So this is kind of like the next part we're going to take a quick look at here. So with our character selected, let's just go into the composer mode here, because with this particular character, we just need to basically add a ball holding sprite to his hands. If you select the character's hands and go to the sprite library here, or the sprite editor rather, you can see that every character has a sprite hand library. And this is a special type of character with sprite hands. I know we have bone hands right now, which are a very kind of different thing. But with sprite hands, you can see here, there's a reach, there's a one, the victory. You're probably all familiar with this. Let's go ahead and just select our character and export him into Photoshop by selecting Launch PSD Editor and launching our character into Photoshop. And we also need to do the same thing with the basketball as well. Now I also have a PSD of the basketball. If you want to do it manually, I'll show you how to basically launch the prop into Photoshop as well. The content manager under props, we have our basketball right here. It actually comes up very large on the screen, so don't worry about that. You can see it right here. You can make it smaller, relatively person-sized, and then just take that into Composer, and we can launch this just like we launched the character in Photoshop. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to basically copy this image, this basketball image you can see here. We need to copy this to our character sprite library. So I'm going to go to our character, and don't worry about the head stuff. That's just kind of weird masking. I can show you more about that later if you want. But let's select our character's hand here. I have auto select layer selected, by the way, which is what I normally use up here in the top left for messing around in Photoshop. Let's go to, you can see there's a whole bunch of hand sprites here. These are the hand sprites that you saw earlier. So they're under the RL image, L hand folder. Okay, so let's take out the left relaxed one here and replace it with this 07 reach. Okay, so this one kind of looks like he's, holding a basketball. We're going to work with it. All right, so what we need to do first is we need to actually duplicate this layer. So I'll right click and just basically duplicate layer here. It's called reach copy, whatever. And we'll just double click on it to rename it, and we'll call it B-ball. Okay. And what I'm going to do is just select the B-ball layer over here. And I'm going to right click and duplicate that layer. I'm going to duplicate it to the Jared document. Okay. So the document that has the character. Press OK. And you can see now that basketball has been copied over here. Where is it? Let's zoom out and find out. There it is. Okay, so we just need to kind of essentially move this below the B-ball layer right here and resize it. Oops. Hold Shift to resize in a uniform way, by the way. I think that's roughly the size of a basketball there. And then position it kind of like nicely in his hand, so something like this. So, that'll kind of look like he's holding a basketball. And don't worry about the kind of overlap with the wrist there. Right, so you can kind of work with that. I think something like that would be ideal. Okay, so what you need to do then is take your B-ball and basketball layers, right-click and merge them. Merge layers right there into B-ball layer, right? And so now we have a sprite where our character is holding the basketball. And then just do the same thing for the right hand. So under right hand, let's just make the reach showing here and pan over to our right hand. And that's the sprite right there. and just copy that same, duplicate the layer rather. Same process, b-ball, and copy this layer in, or duplicate the layer in rather. Okay, sorry if I'm going a little bit quick for some people, but there's a lot of other stuff I want to cover before we end off today. So let's take that basketball, bring it down, and resize it. I probably should have gotten the sizes consistent, but it should be okay. All right, let's just work with that. I think that's going to be okay. Okay, looks enough like he's holding a basketball, I think. And merge those layers again. And now we have a b-ball layer on both hands. So now we can just go ahead and save this. So go File and Save. And back in Cartoon Animator, it's going to update our character. I believe it should have updated. I shouldn't have closed that. It might not update. Oops. Oh, no, we have to, gosh darn it. Basically, okay, so anyways, what would normally appear, because I actually closed the character in Cartoon Animator 4 when I did this, when I saved it, so it didn't show up. You have to make sure that your character is still open if you want to save it to your character's hand there. But what you can still do is you can just go ahead and into composer mode. I believe it should still connect. And if not, I'm just going to show you the final project example. Okay, yeah, I won't do that. So let's go ahead and back to the, just make sure you don't get out of this character. Again, you can bring in a brand new character from the Photoshop, like save as a PSD, and then you can import your character as a PSD, just like this, import PSD assets. Like if I saved him out, I didn't really want to cover this, but Jerry, let's just save it to our desktop here. This is another way you can bring in your characters if you've made the mistake like this. Jared S. Full actor, okay. You can also just select partial update, I think, in this case. Let's just do full actor, okay. And it should replace those sprites. Okay, and now you'll see the hand, sprite. There you go. You'll find the ball in the left hand, and for the character's right hand, you'll also find a ball. So you can hold two balls at once there. Okay, let's close that down. The issue with the masking should disappear once he's in. Oh, it's not going to disappear. So just ignore his face for now. So what I'm going to do here is basically at the beginning, we're going to change his hand sprite to a ball on the left hand there. So let's go ahead and do that. Down here. And as he moves along. So right here, we're going to make the switcheroo from one hand to the next. Okay. It's going to be too fast for the camera to catch, just like this. So then we're going to take the left hand and make the left hand relaxed. And we're going to take the right hand and give the right hand the ball now. Okay, so we have that little switch. Okay, not very noticeable if you if you play back the camera fast. So let's play back really quick and we'll see our motion like this. Oop. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is we're going to have the character slam dunk the ball. So we need to zoom in at this point here. Let's just see if I can replace this character's head so he's not looking all weird. So he's not looking at us while he's slam dunking with kind of a weird half face there. That's just kind of a bug I guess I ran into here. We should be able to just replace his head in composer mode just because it's bothering me. Sorry for the aside here. In the content manager under head, we should find campus heroes, and we should have, we can even give him like a different head if we want. Let's give him Joshua's head. Oh, his skin tone's going to be different. Oh, well. Okay, yeah, the skin tone's a little bit too different. We'll have to use Jared there. Okie dokes. All right. Back to business, because we're going to do some facial animation in just a sec here. Okay, his face is no longer mutated. Let's just play back and to the point where he just slams dunks the ball right here. Okay, so we're going to do some little bit of trickery here. Zoom into our timeline. With the ball character selected, rather. We need to go to this frame. And again, ideally, I'd want to kind of tweak the position of the, maybe to be a little bit like an inch closer. Okay, but we're just going to work with this because I don't want to mess around too much. We're short on time here. So what we need to do here is we need to take that prop as well, that basketball prop for the mesh here, the hoop, and kind of bring that forward. It's going to be a giant mesh in the background here. Let's just take it down to size and position it relatively where we need it to be. Okay, and you'll notice that this basketball mesh has also been kind of modified slightly. The mesh has been messed up a little bit. Won't worry about that for now. I can show you more about that later. Anyways, okay, so we'll have that mesh and we'll kind of bring it forward in front of the basketball there. Okay, so just pretend, you know, that it's an inch forward. And of course, we need to right click and remove the animation on that. Okay, so from this frame here, the basketball is going to be in his hand, and this frame here is going to be in the net. So here to here, this is the frame we want to change his hand sprite back to the regular hand, or it can still be the grab hand, or reach hand, I guess it's called. Okay, so just imagine we can tweak that later, that it's grabbing onto the rim. And this is where we need to have our basketball come into play. So at this frame here, what I'm going to do is bring our actual basketball prop. We're going to bring this basketball up. Oops, not with the sprite editor on. Bring it up here, get it into the right position and right size. It can even be in front of this one, so you can resize it easier. Okay, and then right click and remove object animation because you don't want any of that other animation coming into play. This needs to be a little bit higher. Okay. So this basketball, basically to this frame here, we want it to be invisible. So what we can do is we can just go here and make it invisible using this visible invisibility here. Okay, and then here, this is the frame where we want it to be visible. So let's make it appear again. All right, and we'll make it appear at a different position, maybe somewhere like this. Okay, like so. Somehow he threw it into the hoop beyond the rim there. Okay, so now what we have is this. So like this, and from this frame, the basketball first appears, we need to create a transform keyframe. And then a second transform keyframe as it hits the ground. So maybe somewhere like this, it'll hit the ground. Boom, just like that. Okay, so what it's going to look like now is this. We play back. Oh, we need to make that visibility keyframe. It needs to be invisible here. There you go. So jump, and of course needs to be visible here and down to here. Okay, so notice we did that little switcheroo there, and we're good. Okay, but again, the fall is a little bit too linear. So this is a better example of using the transition curves. If we right-click on this keyframe and select transition curve here, then we can actually do something like it'll kind of accelerate as it gets closer to the ground, okay? And we can adjust that strength a little bit less. I find the acceleration is by default quite strong. Okay, so something like maybe 30 would be a little bit better. Okay, and then the last thing we're going to do is just a little squash and stretch with the basketball there. And squash and stretch is really an easy concept. I mean, you can spend a lot more time on it and refine it and everything like that. But we have our ball basically falling here. And what squash and stretch does is it kind of just morphs the shape of the ball to kind of exaggerate the physics of collision with the concrete there. So let's go ahead at a frame like this frame here. And with the basketball selected, we can go over here to our prop key editor. And you'll notice we have an option for deform. Okay, so deform corresponds to the D. Anything with a D in the tracks corresponds with deform. So this is our basketball deform track. So what we want to do here is maybe at this frame here as it's falling, maybe about here, as it kind of escapes the mesh there. What we're going to do is we're just going to select reset. Okay, and that creates a keyframe in our deform track. And then as it gets, midway to the concrete there, so this hits the concrete at about frame 63, so maybe about frame 59 there, we can kind of stretch it out a little bit. So just like this, click and drag on all these different points here and stretch the mesh a little bit. Okay, just like that. And we can maybe even make it a bit thinner to exaggerate even further. Generally, you wouldn't want to exaggerate maybe this much, but again, it's up to you. So what we have now is from here to here, you'll see it'll stretch as it's going down. So this frame right here is completely normal. And then this frame here, it stretches. And it can stretch right until, it basically collides with the ground, which is about this point right here. And then what we want to do here is we're going to create a double click on the track there, and that'll create a keyframe. And then from here, we need it to squash. So a couple frames later, we essentially need to squash. And what we can do is we can take that original keyframe, copy it, and just paste it here. And then we can squash it like this. So take it down, maybe make it a bit wider, like that. Just like that, okay? So now we have it'll kind of squash like that. And then it'll go back into the stretching. So we'll copy that keyframe and paste it. So, but as it moves, as it squashes and stretches, obviously we want to change the position of it. So, and that's the transform track up here. Okay, so this is the main transform track. So hits the ground right here. And then as it stretches up again, then it kind of, maybe we need to move it up to something like this. Okay, maybe about that height. Okay, so then what we have is we have this squash and stretch, and it stretches up again. And then at the very height of its jump, it shouldn't normally be stretched like this at the height of the jump. Okay, at the height, it should be kind of back to normal again. So again, we can take that, which was the normal keyframe? I forget. Oh, the first one here. Copy that. And at the height, right about here, just paste that. So squash and then stretch and then back to normal. And then another stretch, kind of like this, as it moves down, and then another squash as it lands. Okay, so start like this, and then back to normal, and then at this frame, it'll just squash down again. So boing, like that. So boing, and boing, like that. And just basically repeat that same process over and over again. And that's kind of like a squash and a stretch. Again, I don't want to kind of repeat that same thing. We have one more thing I want to get to here. So you can kind of get the point there, though, if there's a couple of bounces. And it just kind of makes things a bit more dynamic. I think what you can probably do is just copy and paste the keyframes here. Let me just make sure. Yeah, these three here. And, generally they should be closer together. The timing should be different, but again, so here, maybe it'll be half the distance. And then back to the ground. Okay, and just repeat the same process again over again. Okay, anyways, that's the main squash and stretch that you can really, it's really quick and easy to do, like I mentioned. Let's see, what else do we have? Oh, there's one final thing I wanted to mention before we cut off here, and I'll take your questions, is the advantage of saving your motion as an action clip is one reason is you can actually, like I mentioned, apply it by right-clicking on your character and selecting the motion from the action menu. So like this, again, right-click in action menu and select the dunk. And the other one is you can actually tweak it even further. If you find that you saved your motion, you're like, oh man, I want to fix that a little bit. What you can do, there's a couple things you can do. So we have the whole motion clip dunk right here. Say for example, we wanted his jump to be a little bit different. So the jump from maybe here to here, so we can break that clip like this. And then from here, where he lands, we can break it again. And now what we have is 3 separate clips. And the clips can actually be manipulated using the time warp function, which is a little bit different from the transition curves. Time warp basically kind of warps the time for the duration of the clip, is one way to explain it. So for example, if I right-click on this dunk clip right here, and I select time warp, you'll find the same window pops up, but it says time warp at the top instead of transition curve. And we can kind of really emphasize, we can like double up on the effect. So for example, if I wanted the jump to be even more dynamic, I can select decelerate again. And what will happen now is it'll be, you can see the jump from here to here is he's basically finished his jump a few frames into this clip. Okay, maybe you wouldn't want it to be that strong. You can maybe add a damping effect. Again, but damping wouldn't be too good in this case. You can smooth it out possibly by selecting the smooth. Okay. I kind of like the smooth. Maybe it's a little bit more. Again, make sure you have the clip selected. Like that. Okay. Yeah, that's a little bit too much of a jump. So again, it really depends. You can really modify this quite significantly. Accelerate would maybe decelerate it a little bit from before. So now you can see it looks really weird. Everything happens from here to here. So again, it's just one way you can actually tweak it in the end as well. You can add those additional tweaks. And finally, the last thing you can do is you can actually right-click on any of the clips and you can select sample motion clip. And if you want to mess around with the keyframes again, you can select sample motion clip and select a certain part like the body or the hip or the legs or something like that. Or you can also select optimized keys. So optimized keys, I'm just going to use this for this case here. And what that'll do is that'll add a bunch of keyframes that you can then manipulate and used to adjust the timing of everything as well. Okay, so that's that. I guess finally at the end, if you wanted to do some facial animation, I'll quickly show you the our character facial animation. There's a couple ways you can do it. One is using the facial puppet tool right here, face puppet tool. This is the one I like to use. It's just kind of really quick and easy to create a smile on your character. Just if you preview it. So we just did a pretty nice dunk. He's like, oh yeah, just like that. And we can just go ahead and record that. Okay, and what that does is it creates a clip in the face track right here. We have the key. Oh, we have our character selected. Yeah. So yeah, I'll create this puppet clip here on the facial clip track right here. And that could be manipulated the same way as any other clip. And if I want to delete that, I can also use my own face using facial motion capture. So we'll just go ahead and plug in Motion Live 2D like this. And then I can select, let's just use the face 3D. Oops. Oh, I don't have it enabled here. Where is my face 3D tracker? There we go. So this is a separate application. There's me again. You can see all the face tracking little points there. So once that's loaded up, what you want to do here, you can select window always on top. And there's a bunch of settings. What you want to do is essentially, oops. Let's move me over here where I'm not in the way. So you can select enable. There you go. It should be enabled now. And go select face 3D for your character. And you want to make sure you set a 0 pose, which is your basically like a passport photo, just a very neutral look on your face. So just like look at the camera like that. And once that's done, then you can go ahead and preview. Oh, the character's running around. Let's move it over here and try again. Well, I'm not sure why the character's running around. Oh, we have the project length slider. That's right. Let's bring it to somewhere over here. So there's me laughing. Okay. Eyebrows. Eyes looking around. Okay, so you can, and that's the really quick and easy facial animation. I'm using facial motion capture. Me winking. And if it's a little bit shaky, you can always smooth it out as well. You can go to your strength, and there's also like post capture smoothing and various other things you can do with the facial motion capture. But I've gone a little bit over time here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to you guys, and I'm going to go to the Q&A now. So if you have any questions, put those questions in the Q&A section of the Zoom panel, and I'll get to answer those right now. We'll bring me into the background there. Okay, so thanks for sticking with me. And sorry if I kind of zoomed through a few things. For those of you who are maybe new to the software. All right, first question from Rosemary. Will these methods work on our own characters that we import? Yeah, absolutely. Everything that I showed you today, well, the jumping part of the animation was done manually. And that can be done with any character. That can be done with a pig. Excuse me, I could even like literally have a pig jump and dunk a basketball if I wanted to, as long as it has bones, which all of the characters are required to have. So it would just look a little bit different, but yeah, you could make a pig dunk as well. The one thing that the pig couldn't do is I couldn't apply that one animation, the running animation, to the pig. And that's because the bone structure is different. There are different types of bone templates that you can download from the content store. Like if you go to the actor tab, these ones come with Cartoon Animator, like the G3 animals. There's the cat motion bone, the cat dummy. So there's one for spine, like caterpillars or earthworms and stuff. These are just custom bone structured characters. If I have like a cat, for example, we do have animations in the animation library that are used specifically for those characters. So if I take this cat motion bone, for example, and it'll be the same for the deer. Let's actually bring two of the characters on the screen at once here. Make sure we're at frame 1 here. Deer will be fine. So these two characters share the same bone structure. Let's make it smaller. And therefore, they can actually use the same library motions. So if I go to the Content Manager and Animation and G3 Animals, there's one for cat. Okay, so idle. Let's maybe have a cat walk loop. Okay, so we'll just click and drag it and apply it to our cat. Okay, and we can do the same thing to the deer. It might look a little bit weird on the deer, but it'll still apply to the deer. Okay, that's a deer kind of walking like a cat. For the deer one, you might want to use the horse instead. So move, use this, maybe this trot instead. Okay, and then of course you can loop both of them. Like I showed earlier. Do the same thing with the deer. This is the advantage of having the, oops, I wonder where this deer has a walk. Oh, there we go. The advantage of having the object-related track selected, you can just click on one character and it'll go to that character's tracks right away. So, okay. So again, if you want to have your character compatible with those motions in the motion library, then you have to use that particular bone structure. And I know I get a lot of questions from people asking about, obviously quadruped characters who have 4 legs, and this is the way that you would do that. So you would take that actor and basically export it into Photoshop. So go to the composer mode, and you would have like a similar structure, actually quite dissimilar structure to the character I exported earlier. Not sure why it's not compose. There we go. I couldn't see it because of my chat window there. So yes, launch this into Photoshop, and you'll see the same kind of structure in Photoshop, just with the different folders. Again, but this character is going to have different sort of like a foot right there. There's the thigh, front foot on the left, hip. Okay, so basically you just replace all these sprites. Keep the bone structure, but replace the sprites. I don't believe we actually have a tutorial on how to create a custom cat or anything like that, but we probably should, because I get a lot of questions about that stuff. Anyways, hope that answers your question. I went a little bit an extended answer there, Rosemary. Question from anonymous attendee: can we integrate our own character creations into CTA? If so, what formats can be imported? I guess I kind of answered that. Yes, you can. But you have to have a bone structure for the characters, because they need bones to be animated. And you can create characters from scratch easily. You can import in your own characters, but again, you have to set them up with bones. And the bones are all created in Composer mode. There's tutorials in our Learning Center. If you're not familiar with our Learning Center, I'm going to show that to you right now, because it's a really essential place to check out if you want to learn more about Cartoon Animator. Just to keep in mind, guys, I see some people in the chat window. I'm going to be answering the questions from the Q&A window, not the chat window there. Just be aware of that. Okay, so back to the Learning Center, 2D animation, Cartoon Animator. And every page that we have, every product that we have will have its own Learning Center. So if you go up to Learn, there's tutorials here. There's also the online manual. This is the 12 Principles of Animation done by Mark. Like I mentioned, I really recommend checking this out. You can learn more about him here. Mark Diaz down in Mexico. And if you want to learn more about animation, very essential. Okay, so anyways, yeah, learn tutorials. And the tutorials I was mentioning were about yeah, creating custom characters. So there's a section here on 2D character creation. You can see lots of tutorials that you can learn about all the different types of bones and how to create completely custom characters. So recommend checking these out on your own time. I did these like a couple of years ago, I think, or maybe a year ago. But they still stand for basically creating G4 characters, or G3 characters rather. Okay. Question from William: is rotoscoping possible in Cartoon Animator 4? Unfortunately, not the way it is right now, but that is a feature that we are looking at for the next version, and that the ETA on that is maybe later this year, possibly at the very end of the year, at the earliest. So, yeah, rotoscoping is something that's obviously requested quite often by traditional animators. And we have recognized the demand for that, and hopefully that'll be coming up in the near future here. Yeah. By the way, as well, if you have any features that you guys want to have in Cartoon Animator 4, I really recommend checking out our forums. So if you go to forum.reallusion.com, there's actually a wishful feature section for every product. So if you go down here to Cartoon Animator, there's a wishful features section here. And this is essentially just where people kind of, if they come across, something that a tool they would find useful in Cartoon Animator, or some feature that they would love to have, just put your feedback in here. And we have our development team checks this regularly for people who, wishful features. So if there's a really popular request, there's a very good chance that it's going to be integrated into the next update or the next version. So just be aware of that. That'd be a good place to put the rotoscoping, or although rotoscoping is already on the way, I can say that. Next question is from Vivek: is there a way to manipulate the bone hierarchy of the character under composer mode? So bone hierarchy of the character under composer mode. Let's go back into Cartoon Animator. So we are in composer mode right now. You can see the bone hierarchy right here. The layer manager, you can manipulate for sure. The bone hierarchy, I believe so. I think the bone hierarchy is already, you can go to edit pose. Wait. I'm not sure if you do it in the bone editor. You can insert and remove particular bones. Why is it not letting me do that? But in terms of like clicking and dragging from the bone hierarchy in the scene manager here, I don't think that's possible to click and drag it. You can just multi-select it like this, but you can't really click and drag. But particular bones, yeah, it's gonna modify all the subsequent ones. It should have the option here to modify these bones. I think I need to. I haven't done this in ages, so transform bone. Yeah, that's not going to help. That just kind of allows you to move the bone like this. Bone editor. You should be able to. I think maybe it's only on custom characters. Maybe it's not on these types of characters that you're able to adjust it, because it's not letting me. It's not enabling these other bone tools here. So I would assume that with the newest update, you're not able to do it with the Reallusion characters. You'd need to bring in your own custom character. I'm not sure if I have my own custom character available. I probably have one in the content manager in my custom folder. Somewhere around there. Oh, thingamabob. Oh, chicken is custom. This is one character I'm very proud of, my chicken head. Oops, the giant chicken terrorizing this suburban town. Let's see if we can do the same with him. We should be able to. Because I know for sure there's a lot more. Oh yeah, edit pose in Bone Editor. There you go. Okay. So yeah, now you can insert bones and you can remove bones. Just like that. Okay, insert, and you can remove that one if you want. So bone here on the tail, we can insert one. So now we have bone 23 before bone 9, which is the little nub at the end there. So that's kind of how you would modify the hierarchy there. I'm not sure why it didn't work on the other one. Maybe because I didn't go into edit pose mode. But yeah, you should be able to obviously insert and reduce and all sorts of, options for this. Reduce basically just removes that bone, by the way, or reduces the amount of bones needed. It's been quite a while since I did this tutorial on this stuff. And again, you can shift select in I think the reduce. No, reset just removes them all. Anyways, that's how you manipulate the Bone Editor. There's probably stuff in the help files that go into more detail on that, but yeah, that's how you would manipulate it. Next question from Gerald here. For those that utilize Adobe Illustrator or Corel Draw, are you able to import your own custom content from these apps to Cartoon Animator 4? Yeah, absolutely. So again, to repeat what I said earlier, you can import them no problem. Just the animating them, you're required to create your own bone structure. And those tutorials I showed earlier in the Learning Center would be the ones that you want to check out for that. All right, and there are like webinars and tutorials on creating characters from scratch as well. Next question from Rosemary, though. Can we use props that we have created ourselves? Absolutely. Yeah, there's no restrictions on like the props you can use. It's really easy to actually create a prop in Cartoon Animator 4. All you have to do is click and drag an image file in, and it creates a prop automatically. So I probably have some random image on my Explorer somewhere. Let's go to production resources here. In case you are not familiar with this, let's just take a face image of someone here. You're going to become a prop. So just click and drag your character in. Oh, crap. I can never see these notifications because the chat window's in the way for Zoom here. Got a bunch of livestock on the screen right now. Anyways, to bring a prop into your scene, just click and drag it. Click and drag any image. It'll ask if you want to import it as a prop, image layer, background, or another. You can create an actor this way as well. Prop in this case. So a prop, again, is just an image layer that you can manipulate and modify in various ways. And whoops. So on and so forth. The cat has a person head now. All right, anyways, yes, you can use props that you've created yourself, no problem. And those can be edited in the same way as the basketball I showed earlier. Okay, so question from LaTroy. Having a hard time building a morph-based head that faces at a 90-degree angle, in addition to movement, as if the character is driving a car. I can grasp the car movement from this webinar, but the 90-degree morph-based head is a root head in my animation suite. So first of all, morph-based heads are a little bit tricky, and that's kind of like an older technology. So you're not going to get the accuracy and the visual quality that you would normally get with a sprite-based head. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, we have morph-based head that essentially we use it previously for kind of like realistic type characters where you could just take an image of a person and bring it to life and create a head from that image. But LaTroy, I think if you were creating a 90-degree head, morph-based wouldn't be the way to go, first of all. And in terms of animating it, I think I need a bit more detail on, maybe you can clarify a bit on what sort of issues you're having problems with on that animation. By the way, guys, if you have any further questions, there's always people in our forums. I showed you earlier, forum.reallusion.com. You can always put your questions here in general discussion and technical issues and stuff like that. There's tons of people that are browsing around there and are able to, are happy to help out. You can also email me as well. My email is kai@reallusion.com, and I'll get back to you for sure. It's a matter of when and if. There's a lot of people asking questions for sure. Yeah, those are the options as well if you need clarification on something I can't really get to in this webinar here. Okay, so Vivek asks, how do you rotate an object by anchoring the node point of an object in composer mode? So I assume you're talking about props, Vivek. With props, there is a pivot point for all props in your scene. Let's take the basketball, for example. Let's just bring in a separate prop here. Let's get our cat out of the way there. My scene is just too crowded. Something like a baseball bat would be good because you can rotate the baseball bat in various ways. So you can see here, there's like a little kind of gray circle in the middle of the baseball, or baseball bat rather. And if we rotate it around, it's going to rotate around that little gray circle there. So if we take our baseball bat into composer mode and select it here, there's this little red dot that you can click and drag. And if I wanted to rotate from like the edge of the baseball bat, for example, we can click and drag that and pivot. You can set the pivot points automatically here. So if you go up to pivot, you can set them like this for the bottom left, for example, or you can click and drag it manually. And now if I click and drag it, if I rotate it, it'll rotate from that pivot point, okay? Again, you can do that manually or custom. So if I take it to here, for example, and then rotate, right, it'll do that. So that's kind of, hope that answers your question there, Vivek. That's kind of just the pivot point is where you anchor the rotation for your object. Question from Stephen Morales. On the motion clip, I need sometimes that the form stays in that same position because of the motion clip. It moves always. How can I remove that motion in a certain time, but not using the remove part feature on the clip? Okay, so I'm trying to clarify here. I think you have a motion where you want the forearm to stay in a certain position, but not remove. So what I would do here, Stephen, I assume what you want to do here is you want to have a motion where your forearm stays stationary, but the rest of the body is moving. So I showed you, let's bring in another character here. Let's just, let's just bring in Athletic Tim. So for example, if Tim here has an animation applied to him, let's just try and find a dancing animation here. Smooth moves. Okay, so there's dancing here. Okay, so Athletic Tim has this, okay, let's play that again. I think it applied to the beginning of the, okay, so this is a good example. If I have this animation here and say I want my character's right arm and forearm to remain stationary, this is probably the approach that I would take just off the top of my head here. I would go into the motion track, and you can see your motion clip here. So if I wanted his right arm to remain kind of folded into his hip there, what I would probably do here is I would just, at this point, right-click on the clip and break it. And then I would go to like here, and maybe for the rest of the clip, what I would do is, let's see here, there's probably a couple ways to do this. At this frame here where the right arm is kind of at his hip, I would just right click, and you can remove motion from a specific part of the body. So I would remove the motion from the right arm, right forearm, right hand, right arm, blah, 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 just remove. And yeah, it'll reset it back to this position, I guess, unfortunately. I shouldn't have to do that, but again, that would be fixed with this repositioning here. Yeah, it should basically stay at that frame, but that's kind of what I would do. Just kind of remove the animation from that point there. That's the way I would do it essentially. It shouldn't pop into that A pose like it did before. I'm not sure why it did that, but that'd be the one way to keep that that arm stationary at that point. So right click and remove motion from that page, or from that. I think maybe because it was blended. Let's try this. Okay. Yeah, so right here, right click. Let's try it again here. Remove motion. I think maybe because I actually removed the motion from the arm too far up, so it should maybe just be forearm and forehand there. No, it pops right into that. Let's try that one more time. It's a good question, actually. It shouldn't generally pop into that position. Okay, so when I just removed just the arm by itself, it kind of resolved the issue. Well, yeah, I guess it's a matter of selecting the right body part. This motion maybe is a little bit complicated. And it kind of goes to show there's really, often there's not really a one size fits all solution for this sort of stuff. Maybe try right forearm here. See if that does the trick. Oh, see, the right forearm just pops it out. That's weird. Yeah, that's the way I would do it, and then just reposition it, I guess, back to whatever position it was at before. Yeah, that's kind of annoying. Anyways, that's probably the way that I would do it. Sorry to not give you a clearer one size fits all solution. Okay, so Bill asks, can you do a demo using the Cartoon Motion Volume 3 animation at work that you mentioned earlier? I don't think I even have it installed, actually, unfortunately. I didn't really pay attention until just early, a couple hours ago, as to what was on the weekly special. So yeah, sorry, Bill. I probably have to reinstall. I'd probably have to install that Cartoon Motion Volume 3 and demo it for you. But I don't have it installed on my computer right now, so I'd have to go in and purchase it from the content store and go through that whole process. But yeah, if you have any questions about it, I'd be happy to answer any of those questions. You can see the product page has all the demos and stuff. Shouldn't be too hard. Whoops. To find, excuse me. Yeah, so you'd see the, if you click on it, it'll take you to the pack page here. And then you can see some of the motions that are included just by clicking on them. This is sort of one of our old school pages. Checkbox up, megaphone. This one's pretty good. Jumping up the stairs. So he says hello and then jumps back. So some pretty cool animations. And again, these can be used for Cartoon Animator 4 and for iClone as well. You can transfer them into Cartoon Animator 4 via iClone. So sorry about that, Bill. Don't happen to have it installed at the moment. Question from Omar. When he added the ball to the hand, he replaced a layer or added a new one. My question is actually if you're able to add layers in Photoshop to a character you are already using. Oh yeah, so I guess just to kind of clarify what I did with that whole switcheroo on the hands there. So if you need a kind of a summary of it, essentially what I did take a roundabout way, but have your character selected, go into composer mode. Well, let's actually try and find something like a knife maybe. We can do the same thing. Prop. Or let's maybe not a knife, that's too violent. If I wanted to have give him like a cricket bat, for example. Let's load this cricket bat in Photoshop. And then we'll let's get rid of our cat. No. And then just go and so this is a mistake I made earlier. I took the character out of the cache, I guess you can say. Let's just take him into Photoshop. And just basically add that onto your character's layers. So launch PSD editor. So we'll bring up the character and his right hand. You can see there is the, this one have the basketball in it. Yeah, B-ball right there. So if I wanted to give him like the cricket bat, for example, he'd probably be, there's a grab one, I think. We'll work with this, reach here, duplicate it. Take our cricket bat here, duplicate that to Jared. And let's give him the paddle here. Oops. Okay, I'm not sure how large cricket bats are actually supposed to be here. Oops. And of course, the reach needs to be above it. So in this case, you probably want the thumb to kind of be behind the cricket bat. So that would just take some, quick editing. Or you could even have the fingers behind the cricket bat, but I'll put the thumb behind in this case. So you would take that reach and then just like, oops, select that. I'm gonna make a really crappy version of it here. Make sure we have the right selected. There you go. So just Control X, and basically this would be the sprite that you want to have, just because it looks weird if it is above his thumb. It'll look like he's kind of floating. It'll be floating on his palm. So just make sure you take that thumb and on that particular layer and just cut it out there, and so you have something more like this, and then merge those two layers again. Oops. I'll call this cricket, and then file save. And now because it's still in the cache for Cartoon Animator 4, it'll load up that cricket paddle. So now you can see it's loading up. What I did earlier is I put the prop in the cache instead of the character. So there's a hand selected. I'll have a cricket bat. There you go. Boom. Now you can go around paddling people. And yeah, you'll have that in this mode as well. Yep. So it looks kind of weird at that angle, but he's like, I'm gonna hit you. There you go. And you can also, like, flip the hand, and there's various other things you can do. But of course, you just need to modify the sprite separately. Just be aware of that. Okay. Yeah. And then what I did is I replaced that prop. I replaced the sprite with a prop. So just using the visibility tool. So if I select the basketball, where is the basketball? Right here. Yeah, this basketball right here. If we go into the visible tracks, right here, you can see it's invisible right here from this frame to this frame. And then from here on, it's visible because you can see the line. Whenever you see that line in the visible track, then it's visible. If we want to make it invisible, we can just click on it. Invisible, visible. Okay, invisible. I think you get the point. Just adjusting the visibility. So this will be the magic disappearing ball. So invisible, visible, visible, visible. Okay. Hopefully that answered your question there, Omar. Rosemary asked, can we use the elastic motions for the bouncing ball? Yeah, absolutely. That would actually be kind of a recommended action. I'm just going to start a new project to get everything out of my way here. There's too much stuff in that scene. So like a baseball, for example, we'll switch it up and use a baseball. And elastic motions. So there's tons of elastic motions. Entrance. So this would be kind of like, where is the, there should be a bouncing one here. So if you have this, if you have this elastic motion pack, then you don't even need to do what I just did there. So where's the bouncing? Oh yeah, so something like this. Oh, that doesn't work. Bounce right, bounce top. So then if you have this, this bounce right here, then you don't even need to use that whole process I showed earlier. And of course, with elastic motions, you can also edit the elastic motion as well in the timeline. If I select it with my baseball and in a bounce here, you can right click on that clip and select elastic motion editor. And so it's just a kind of a bounce. Oops. And you can make that move more like this, like a higher movement value. So you can fall from like a higher distance like this, and you can adjust that manually as well. All right, basically, yeah, that's it. And then there's motion curve as well, for sure. This one is called end in a bounce. All right. Yeah, let's go to the next question here. Hopefully that answers your question there, Rosemary. Okay, so DJ asked a good question. How did you do the shadow on the first preview? So with the shadow character, let's just load up the project. Let me save this. Essentially, I just held the control key, click and drag the character to copy him. I made the entire character black and then just resized the character using the transform tool. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. It's actually quite simple, quite easy to make shadows. Unfortunately, of course, there's the limitations when there's other objects in your scene. The shadow's not supposed to be flat, but you can get away with it if you. Okay, so I have the shadow here. I'll show you from scratch. So if I take the character, because the character has animations already included in this project, like this one right here, if I hold Control and I click and drag, my second character that I copied, that I create, basically the duplicate character is also going to have those same animations. So if I play back with the second character here, just like this, they'll have the same animations. Okay, so that's pretty cool. You can just duplicate like an army of characters. So what I essentially did here is I just moved them up a little bit. I went to the render styles and just changed the brightness down to 0 or -100, I think it was. Okay, so there's his shadow. And of course, your shadow's not going to look like that. It's not going to be, it looks a little 2D. So you have to click and drag the transform here just to make it look like this. Okay, so more flattened. And then if we go frame by frame, you can see it looks like there's a shadow on the concrete behind him. Okay, so pretty cool little, and it's quick and easy to do. Once you have all the animations already set, it's quick and easy to do that. And of course, there you go. All right, next question is from anonymous attendee. I've seen on the forum that you can make a vector G3 character by substituting flash files for the character sprites. So the G3 characters don't really use flash technology or flash format, flash technology, flash format. G2 characters are the ones that use flash format. We don't really support that much anymore because I guess flash has kind of gone the way of the digital dinosaur. But let me see the rest of your question here. The sprites don't seem to stay default. Yeah, so right now I wouldn't recommend even trying for the G3 vector character, which I guess was your end question. We do intend to support vector format for characters in the future in a different way. That'll be coming up in the next version probably. But right now, G3 characters, we just recommend using the image-based, not vector-based, because again, we're trying to move away from that technology. It's a little outdated, and yeah, that's just the simple answer I can give for that, unfortunately. And I haven't even used Flash for, gosh, it's been a couple of years now. Let's go to the next question anyways from Trish. The actor core motion files, are they FBX format? You can download them in FBX format or any format you want, Trish, to answer your question. So if you have a motion that's not from actor core, like an FBX motion, how can you install it in CTA? So if it's a 3D FBX motion, what you need to do is you need to bring that motion into a program called 3D Exchange, which is our conversion software for motions. And you need to remap that motion to our standard bone structure. After you do that, then you can apply that motion to any Cartoon Animator 4 character. Not any, just the G3 characters. So just keep that in mind. The process is actually quite simple. It seems complicated, but you just take that FBX file, import it into 3D Exchange, and then you have to remap the bones to our standard bone structure, and then it's compatible with any of our characters, both 3D and 2D. Okay. And you can always email me later if you need more clarification on that. Question from Junaid. How can we make a hand come in front of the face and then within the same scene go back to the head? So this is done using the layer key editor. Junaid, I'll show you this briefly here on our character. Let's say, for example, let's just start a new area here. Let's say this character wanted to, what's that thing that, was it John Cena does? He puts his hand in front of his face like you can't see me or something. Anyways, let's do a really quick animation where this character will, so right now, if we move his forearm forward, you'll see this. Let's actually use the other arm here. So let's do this. So he'll be, right now it goes behind his head. Okay. Because essentially what's happening is if we go here to our character and down here, where is the, layer editor down here. There's a layer editor. So if we take the right hand, for example, on our character, right now it's behind, you'll see it's lower on the hierarchy than the face. So what I would do is I would take the left hand here, and let's just move it so it's easier to see the result. Let's move it in front of his head directly. Okay, so right now it's behind his face. And if we go to the layer editor, so select left hand, where is it? There we go. We can select left hand and select send to back, or we can say send to front and send to front and of the face too. Whoops. Left hand, where is it here? Did I lose my left hand? Okay, left hand, you can also go to move to top. Okay, so now the left hand will move to the top of essentially everything. Okay, and if you release it, it'll go back down to the base. So left hand, I think, why is it not? I think maybe I need to select my different face. Oh, this one here. Okay, different face. You can also select face and then send to back. Send to back of left hand. There we go. Oh, chose the wrong one. Send to back of left hand. Okay. So what's going to happen then is that the hand will be in front of the face. If we select left hand and we select left hand, send to back, and then we select face, now it'll be behind the face. Okay. So right now we'll say left hand. We'll send the face behind the left hand, send to back of left hand, and also send it to back of left forearm there because the forearm's kind of peeking out. So send to back of left forearm. Okay. So now it's behind it, and if we just do a quick animation like this, let's go a few frames ahead, and then take his arm like this, and then go a few more frames ahead, and take the arm back. Let's actually go into our timeline so we can see the, whoops, layer editor there. So here we have this out and then back. And at this point here, right here is where I want the hand, before it makes contact with the face area, here's where I want the hand to go behind the head. So here I need to use the layer editor. And I need to select my left hand right here. And need to go here and select left hand and send to back of face. Okay. And right forearm, or sorry, left forearm, and send to back of face. Okay, and then if we scrub through, now it'll be in the back. So forward, front, and back, just like that. Front and back. Okay, hopefully that's easy enough for you there. All right, let's go to the next question here. We're going to go for another maybe 15 minutes or so here. We got about 20 more questions to get through. Next question from Kiki. How to add animation detail on top of facial puppet? For example, raise one eyebrow a little bit. All right, this is one of my favorite things to do because it's so easy. Let's just take our character here and let's move his hand away from his face, first of all, since we're going to be animating the face. Get out of here, you. Okay, let's move him back to a regular position here. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, there's not much of a difference between the facial puppet and the facial mocap. Obviously, facial mocap captures your face, but in terms of the way they show up in your timeline, they're both motion clips. Okay, so if I go to my face key editor here, And oh, not face key editor. Whoops, sorry. That's for later. Let's go to the facial or face puppet tool first. Let's use this maybe happy profile here if we preview. Okay, so you can see one eye is going up like that. I'm just going to record a quick, like, back and forth, something like this. Let's go ahead and record. Okay, I guess his arm decided to go in front again here. Don't worry about that. So let's close that down. So we have this right here. I'm going to select my character and remove all the animation. Whoops. Let's just do that one more time. Remove object animation because it's annoying to have the hand. This is probably the fastest way to do it. Just because okay, so that's a good example where we have the eyebrows kind of going up and down. And again, when you add those, when you record using the face puppet tool, it's going to show up in your face track here. There's too many tracks open. Your facial clip track here. There's your puppet clip. So essentially, if, for example, I wanted his eyebrow to be higher, I mean, there's one way, if you want to do a fast way, like say, for example, you only want his left eyebrow to be higher. Okay, right here, you only want his left eyebrow to be higher. What I can do is I can just erase everything, only select my character's left eyebrow. And if I preview, okay, I can move that left eyebrow up and down by itself. Okay, so then if I record, I'll have to do it in real time. So always make sure you have blend data on next recording, by the way. Okay, so record, and then, okay, now what that did is it kind of just basically blended it and made the right eyebrow a little bit higher than before. Okay, now, I mean, the better way to do that, because this is kind of hit and miss, the better way to do that would be to use the face key editor. And from here, for example, this is where you want the eyebrow to start moving. So basically, you can double click in the facial motion track. I should add a keyframe. Face transform, sprite deform. Don't worry about that. If I take my left eyebrow, for example, in the morph track right here, or the transform, it doesn't matter, but morph is probably better. If I take the left eyebrow there and click and drag it, I can move that eyebrow separately by itself. Okay, and when I do so, you'll notice that if I open up my brow tracks here, oops, and nothing really shows up in the brow track right here. And that's because if we go to the facial clip track here, anything that's done in the morph track is actually going to be kind of recorded here. So if you notice, there's one kind of extra keyframe here under the face track. That's for the eyebrow. If I remove all these, like just select and delete them right here, if we say, for example, we didn't want that eyebrow raise, what I would do then in this case, I would just double click here, and then maybe where the eyebrow is raised, like right here, I would take it down. Okay, so then from here to here, his eyebrow is not going to raise. So that's where if you use the face key editor and use the morph tab right here, keep in mind it's going to be only in the facial clip under face here. Okay, head is going to be for head movement, which are these two little icons right here. And eye, of course, is going to be for the eye movement. So if, for example, I wanted his eyes to go from right here, I wanted them to look to the side, like maybe it's right here, then I would go ahead and select both the eyeballs and move his eyes right there. And probably you can right click on that clip or that keyframe rather, copy it and paste it earlier. Okay, so from here to here, we'll have some eye movement to the right. Okay, and they'll remain like that until this frame right here, because That's a little bit of a fast transition, so you'd probably want to, do something like this. Okay, so you can just modify that eye movement separately. If I wanted to have maybe a more shuddering, again, you can use the keyframes and move them up faster. So a faster movement for the eye, and just adjust the timing of those eyes. Okay. Now, the transform basically is different from the facial clip track. If I close the facial clip track down, you'll see we have a face transform track. So, for example, right here, I go into the transform track, and I select my character's eyebrow, and I just kind of move it slightly. It's going to create a keyframe in the face transform track. And it's also going to create a keyframe on the left brow, L brow T transform track. So right here, maybe from here to here, we could have that eyebrow zoop, super high, okay? So you can see basically where the transform keyframes go versus where the morph keyframes go. To make it even more funny, even more interesting, we have the deform. Okay, so deform allows you to manipulate the shape of that facial feature. And as you can probably guess, we have the face deform track here, and we also have left brow D, which stands for deform. So if I just basically select the left brow and I select reset sprite, it's going to add a keyframe right there. This adds an absolute key in the deform track. And then if we go here to this frame, we can make that brow look really weird and twisted. Yeah. Or we can make it further down like this. So in that case, we would have something like this. Okay, so you can really exaggerate that brow. Again, using the deform, transform, and a combination of all those. That's just kind of a very brief overview about on how you can refine and modify the facial animation that you record using the facial puppet clip or using your facial mocap later on. Very important stuff for facial animation. Okay. Question from Dan about the shadows. I think I kind of answered that question, Dan, about the shadows. If you need clarification, feel free to email me. So Marine asks, how do you change the facial expression of the character while animating? I think I kind of just showed a little bit about that. Hopefully that answered your question there, Marine. If you have more probing questions, then you can feel free to ask me as well. All right, thanks, William. Thanks for being here with us today. Question from Christine. My CTA has Photopea as the editor. Can I change it to Photoshop? Yeah, absolutely. If you want to change your photo editor, just go to Preferences, I believe. And under, oh man, who knows where it is? Interface? Nope, nope. Yeah, Image. Under Image, there's an image editor here. You just kind of select a different executable file for that particular software. Okay. And you can also install Photopea here as well. Question from Rosemary. Can the constraint option help with sliding if you want to do more manual movement? Yeah, absolutely. Constraint is essential for preventing sliding, actually. I think I kind of showed you guys enough about constraints to kind of get you familiar with it. So if you have more questions about the details, I'd be happy to answer, but I just kind of want to get through these last remaining questions here. Christine asks, can you use a full painting of a car for the pre-made cat motion, or do you have to split it piece by piece? Oh, cat. Clarified with the next question. I thought Christine was talking about a car, not a cat. Yeah, so you have to split it piece by piece. So each individual sprite needs to be replaced, Christine. Just to clarify that for you. You can't just do the one big cat picture, unfortunately. You have to tear it apart in Photoshop and replace it piece by piece. It's like a mad scientist of images. Okay, another question from Vivek here. I have Affinity Photo that I use to alter my PSD files, but every time I alter my PSD file with Infinity, CTA fails to address the changes in real time, like it does with Photoshop. That may be a bug, Vivek. I'm not sure. I haven't used Affinity in a while. But if you are having that issue pop up again and again, I highly recommend sending some feedback to our customer support team. By the way, guys, if you have any technical issues that you come across, I recommend to refer them to our customer support team. From our main page, once you're logged on, you should be able to find the customer support link right here under your little icon there. Mine's Cloud from Final Fantasy VII, as you can see. Just select support, okay? And just issue a support ticket if you're having a technical issue. You can create a new one right here. Okie dokes. Question from William. Have you thought about a membership model? I think you're talking about a membership model for a CTA. Yes, I assume you're talking about in terms of pricing, monthly memberships versus yearly memberships, etc. That is something we've considered. There's still a lot of debate on whether or not we want to adopt that model. I do believe that model is more, lucrative in the end, but we kind of feel that a lot of users like to keep our software for longer and just kind of, we have a lot of casual users as well that we don't want to kind of put them out on the front steps or put them on the cold, I guess, in terms of, if their membership expires and they haven't used it for a couple months, yeah, ongoing debate anyways. Question from Marine. How do you change the facial expressions of the character while animating? Okay, I think I already answered that one. That might be a repeat question. Okay, Latroy, speaking characters when facing 90 degree, their mouth does not move. Oh yeah, I don't know, Latroy. I'd have to get a morph-based character. Maybe you can send me your character via email and I can take a look at it. I'm gonna create this little long one here. Okay, so for Vivek, I think you're talking about the moving the bone from one position to the next. Replacing one bone with another. I don't want to kind of bumble through that again. I was more familiar with it previously, but I know that you can. My suggestion would just be to check out the help files for that particular issue there, Vivek. I can't really answer any detailed questions about the bone hierarchy right now. I know it is a little bit tricky sometimes, but the drag and drop feature would be tremendous for sure. And that may be something that we can consider in the future, in terms of dragging and dropping in the bone hierarchy there. That would be awesome for sure. But as of right now, it's still a little bit restrictive. So apologies for that. Oh, question from Reallusion, anonymous attendee. Can you do a Reallusion convention soon? If you can do it in Florida, it would be great. Yeah, gosh, it's been ages since I've been to a convention, it seems. I think the last one would have been SIGGRAPH, summer of 2019 was the last one we did, I believe. The last major one we did. So it's almost coming up on 2 years now since haven't done a real life convention. Wow, that's amazing. Man, the years just kind of blown by. I think most people are kind of just bunkering down and watching Netflix in their place, and time just kind of flies by. Yeah, we'd love to do more conventions as soon as this whole pandemic thing just settles down. It's dragging on though. Okay, so Don has a question here about animation foreshortening. I can't click on the links in the Q&A there, Don, but I think if you email me, I'd probably be able to give you a better answer on that. Because I'm just going to kind of end us off here in the next 8 minutes or so. Question from Deborah: what's the new content and updates? What new content and updates are there for the pipeline in Cartoon Animator 4? We do have a. Oh gosh, have we published that yet? In the forums, we have sort of like a software roadmap. I'm not sure where in the forums is, but normally in the forums we have a roadmap that kind of shows where we're going with Cartoon Animator, and I think it's in the general possibly. I don't want to kind of browse around, but I would recommend checking out the forums, because every new development and every upcoming development, Deborah, is actually posted in the forums. A lot of teaser stuff posted there, as well as on our blogs, our blog singular. But in terms of what's coming up, not super aware of anything in the near future. As you may realize, I've been working a lot with iClone recently. But we are going to be, getting back to Cartoon Animator 4 this earlier this summer, I think. All right, thanks everyone. I got a lot of comments here, so thank you for being here. So Deborah asks, what's the difference between elastic motions and other prop animations? So the elastic motions are kind of just clips that already have preset motions in them. And the elastic motions use sort of a different technology that you can edit. I kind of showed you that briefly earlier. When you right click on the motion, that baseball I right clicked on, there's that elastic motion editor. That's the main difference. You can also convert a regular motion to an elastic motion as well. And there is a tutorial on how to do that. Yeah, I think if there's a specific difference, it's just that the elastic motions are just basically prop animations that have been baked. Like all the keyframes have been baked into it, and you can convert them to elastic animations as well. Question from Bill about better vector integration with Affinity Designer. I think I can go back to what I said earlier. The vector thing is still on the way. It is a tricky concept or a tricky technology to kind of work into our current character production pipeline, unfortunately. So we've kind of gone in a little bit of a different direction. But yeah, that is in the pipeline. Okay, so a question from Vivek about the prop pivot. So yeah, the props have pivots. The characters don't have pivots. With the character, I think you can actually modify the pivot point in Photoshop if you load it up. But I don't think in Composer that you're able to modify the pivot point of the character. I don't really know why you'd want to do that. I mean, it's just kind of it's easier to kind of maybe just transform your character into that position anyways. But yeah, in terms of rotation pivot points for your character, yeah, I'm not really certain about that. Maybe in Photoshop, in one of the bone directories here, but yeah, object pivot here. So if you go in Photoshop with your character selected, you find the object pivot here. This will be the pivot point right here for your character down here. And you can move that object pivot around. Wherever this object pivot bone is, that's where your character is going to rotate around. All right. Question from Rosemary. Can we record speech with face mocap tool instead of lip sync? Yeah, absolutely. If you want to do the recording of the face with the facial mocap, and there is an option to record, I believe, face 3D. Yeah, so you can record audio and lip sync down here, down at the bottom. So lip sync, real time, sensitivity, smooth head. That's the option I mentioned earlier. And record the audio. And yeah. It can be post-processed lip sync tends to have a little bit of a better result. But again, that really depends on the quality of your audio and a lot of other things. Like I mentioned before, there's not really one solution fits all for for all these things. You just got to kind of try and troubleshoot a lot of the time. All right, I think we're finally done with our Q&A. So thanks everyone so much for being with us here. And again, apologies for those of you who may be new to the software if I went a little bit too fast through a lot of things, but that's why we have the recorded version we're going to send to you later on. You can review on your own time, and you can always check out our tutorials as well on the website, the Learning Center, like I showed earlier. Okay, yeah, I think we're going to sign off. So thanks so much, everyone, for attending. And again, don't forget to fill out the survey that we're going to send out to you via email. You'll get a 10% discount coupon for the content store if you do so. And yeah, I think that's about seals the deal. So thanks so much, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And I will see you in the next webinar. Thanks, guys.